Tonight, the harrowing search for victims and clues from the devastating air ambulance crash in Philadelphia as pertinent information comes in from the deadly plane and helicopter crash in Washington, D.C. And consumers brace for President Trump's tariffs. How will they impact your wallet? First, that air ambulance explosion and crash in a residential Philadelphia neighborhood, killing everyone on board and at least one person on the ground. The wreckage strewn throughout a 6-block area. Crews are conducting a grid search for more victims. The NTSB is on the ground. What they're saying tonight. Stephanie Ramos reports from the scene. The grim operation in the Potomac, the latest on the investigation into the collision of an American Airlines plane and an Army helicopter, and what we can expect from those black boxes. Gio Benitez is at the crash site. The joyous reunions in Israel. 3 former hostages, including American-Israeli Keith Siegel, freed by Hamas. The reaction from the families after 484 terrifying days. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners also released. Crowds cheering their return. Britt Clennett is in Tel Aviv. The U.S. targets ISIS militants in Syria, the first offensive strike by the Trump administration. President Trump slaps tariffs on 3 of America's biggest trading partners. The impact at the grocery store, the mall, the gas pump, and your wallet, as the White House targets the Justice Department and the FBI, ordering lists of anyone who worked on the investigations into the January 6th Capitol riot. The West Coast braces for days of heavy rain and snow with mounting fears of flash flooding and mudslides. Alerts from California to Montana. Our weather team times it all out. A close call for trash collectors in Ohio. What exploded in the back of their truck, and what authorities are urging residents to do now? And America strong tonight amid so much tragedy. The people stepping up to feed and comfort first responders.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Lindsay Davis. We begin with the investigation into the deadly Medevac crash in North Philadelphia. At least 7 people are dead, including a young girl and her mother. 1 person on the ground was also killed. The horror all captured on a doorbell camera as the small medical transport plane crashed, igniting a huge fireball. At least 19 people were injured. It happened about 30 seconds after takeoff. The plane plummets to the ground less than 3 miles from the airport, sparking several fires near homes and a popular shopping mall. Drone footage shows the magnitude of the fallout. Plumes of smoke billowing above burnout vehicles and debris littering the streets. Police are asking the public to share any video of the plane crash. Area roads remain closed, and the city's mayor is urging residents to stay away from the crash scene. What we're learning tonight about the victims. ABC's Stephanie Ramos leads us off from Philadelphia.
Tonight, we're learning more about the fiery plane crash in North Philadelphia. Captured on surveillance video lighting up the night sky before exploding on impact. The 6 on board killed. 1 person in a car on the ground also losing their life. The small Learjet 55, an air ambulance, headed to Tijuana with a stop in Missouri with 2 passengers and 4 crew members on board, all Mexican nationals. The passengers, a mother and her child, a patient at Shriners Children's Hospital in Philadelphia.
The plane just crashed into the plaza where Macy's at.
Flight Radar 24 data shows the plane flying for about 40 seconds, then a dashboard camera capturing it slamming into a neighborhood Friday evening. At the crash site, first responders extinguishing cars engulfed in flames.
The area is just full of smoke, and there was just people everywhere. Firemen just doing what they got to do. It was just really chaos everywhere.
5 nearby homes catching fire, 19 others injured. Officials saying that number could rise.
That medical jet crashed just a few feet away from where we are. There is debris scattered across multiple lanes. You can see charred vehicles, charred buildings, parts of the plane in pieces. Police have put up this perimeter stretching about 4 to 6 blocks as multiple agencies investigate.
We have teams who are going literally house by house, door to door, so we can be sure that we don't have other hidden damage or structural damage.
Investigators from the NTSB searching for clues on what brought down the plane.
Investigators will look at things like weather. They'll want to look at how was the airplane maintained. It was quite old, so they'll want to look at all the past history of the aircraft.
We heard from the NTSB a few moments ago. They say this is still a very active and dangerous scene. They're still looking for the cockpit voice recorder, but given the high impact of the crash, it may be in pieces. The NTSB telling the public to alert them if they come across the debris themselves. Lindsay.
Some scary moments there, Stephanie. Thank you. Now to the latest on the recovery efforts in the Potomac River. Gusty winds are limiting crews from removing the aircraft from those frigid waters. 67 people died after an Army Black Hawk helicopter on a training mission collided with an American Airlines flight coming in for landing at Reagan National Airport, one of the busiest runways in the country. ABC's transportation correspondent Gio Benitez is back on the scene again tonight as we hear from some of the victims' families.
Tonight, crews on the chilly Potomac River are battling gusty winds as cleanup and recovery efforts enter a second day. U.S. officials say they have recovered the bodies of both pilots from the wreckage of the Black Hawk helicopter. The NTSB working to access that chopper yesterday. The NTSB tonight with new details about that American Airlines flight before the collision.
The CRJ was operating at 325 feet, plus or minus 25.
In all, 67 lives were lost in the accident. The 64 passengers and crew aboard that American Airlines flight and the 3 soldiers in the Black Hawk. 3 people died aboard that helicopter: 28-year-old Ryan Austin O'Hara, 39-year-old Andrew Lloyd Eves, and Rebecca Loback, her family remembering her as a bright star in all our lives. Investigators recreating the final minutes leading up to that mid-air crash before that American Airlines flight started its descent. At 8:43 p.m., the jet's pilots told to land on a shorter runway. That Black Hawk helicopter now also making its way up the Potomac River. At 8:46, 2 minutes before the collision, air traffic control telling the helicopter about the American Airlines plane coming in for a landing from the south on runway 33. At roughly 8:48, asking the Black Hawk pilots to again confirm they see the jet. You can hear the alarm go off as they ask the Black Hawk, "Do you see that jet?"
At 25, CRJ in flight. At 25, respond to CRJ. This club has a aircraft in flight for separation.
Seconds later, the collision.
32017.
The NTSB saying they interviewed the air traffic controller heard in the final seconds leading up to the worst plane crash in decades. The FAA saying in a statement that Reagan National Airport has 25 air traffic controllers with 3 more in training, with a full staff of 28. And this video from 2022, our affiliate WJLA speaking with sisters 11-year-old Lydia and 14-year-old Everly Livingston.
How much fun do you have here with your sister?
A lot. It's really fun to have a sister to skate with.
Both of those little girls losing their lives with their parents, Donna and Peter.
Just so heartbreaking. Gio Benitez joins us now from Washington. And Gio, we know the black boxes for both the plane and helicopter have all been recovered. What are investigators hoping that they reveal?
Well, Lindsay, the most critical will be the voices. What were those final conversations like in both cockpits? In the airplane, for example, did they even know that the helicopter was heading right toward them? And in the helicopter, did they know that they were looking at the right plane or the wrong plane? Was there any confusion at all? These are the critical questions tonight, Lindsay.
Gio, thank you. A new round of executive orders signed by President Trump today, this time for tariffs on goods from Canada, Mexico, and China. Americans are bracing for prices to rise at grocery stores and gas pumps across the country. And the move is stoking fears of a trade war as leaders in Canada and Mexico are vowing to hit back. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang.
Tonight, President Trump imposing sweeping tariffs on America's biggest trading partners, a move that could upend global trade and raise prices at the grocery store and the gas pump.
There could be some temporary short-term disruption, and people will understand that.
The president signing executive orders to hit Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs, with the lower 10% tariff on Canadian oil exports, and China with 10% tariffs, blaming them for illegal immigration and drug trafficking.
They've treated us very unfairly.
The tariff set to take effect on February 4th, just after midnight. Experts say American families could pay $830 more on average this year with those tariffs in place, with higher prices for fresh produce, alcohol, clothes, electronics, cars, and more.
Those tariffs on oil and gas could hike prices at the pump by as much as 70 cents per gallon. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she's still weighing her next move, while Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says they're ready to strike back.
If tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table.
Meanwhile, tonight, the FBI is bracing for a potential purge of employees who worked on investigations of the January 6th Capitol riot. The Department of Justice has requested information on thousands of employees to be sent to Trump's acting Deputy Attorney General by Tuesday afternoon, according to an email sent to the FBI workforce overnight and obtained by ABC News. He will then determine whether any personnel actions will be taken. And Lindsay, the FBI Agents Association is calling the move outrageous, saying that potentially dismissing hundreds of FBI agents would severely weaken the ability of the FBI to protect the country from national security and criminal threats. Lindsay?
Selena Wang from the White House, thank you. And tune in to This Week tomorrow. George Stephanopoulos will speak to the Canadian ambassador to the U.S. about how her government will respond. Overseas now, and an emotional reunion in Israel. American-Israeli hostage Keith Siegel embracing family members for the first time in more than 15 months. He was released by Hamas along with 2 other Israeli hostages. Hamas is still holding 2 more Americans. Here's ABC's foreign correspondent Britt Clennett.
Tonight, after more than 15 months in captivity, a joyful reunion as American-Israeli hostage Keith Siegel is finally able to embrace his family. Reuniting with his daughters and brother at a Tel Aviv hospital, his wife Aviva at his side, after he and 2 other Israeli hostages were released by Hamas. Just hours earlier, Hamas bringing Siegel onto a stage in Gaza City before releasing him to the Red Cross. A convoy transferring him to the IDF, who then airlifted Siegel to that Tel Aviv hospital.
And there it is, the helicopter carrying American-Israeli hostage, now freed after 15 months in captivity, Keith Siegel.
In a statement tonight, Siegel's family saying, finally, after 484 long, terrifying days and nights, full of immense worry for our father, we can breathe again. And thanking President Trump. Israel also releasing 183 Palestinian prisoners to cheering crowds in Gaza and the West Bank. A prominent Palestinian NGO saying they were severely beaten before their release. The Israeli Prison Service saying in a statement they were not familiar with the events described. With negotiations over a second phase of the truce already underway, a close friend of American-Israeli hostage Edan Alexander telling us he feels cautiously optimistic.
Does it give you hope?
Yeah. Now we have a hope. I think there is a chance that it will end.
Lindsay, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to leave for Washington, D.C. tomorrow. He's set to meet with President Trump on Tuesday with talks focused on phase 2 of the ceasefire deal. Lindsay?
Britt, thank you. We turn now to Somalia and President Trump ordering airstrikes on ISIS leaders, the first in that country since his return to the White House. Let's bring in ABC's Lama Hassan reporting from our London bureau. And Lama, this was an offensive strike using fighter jets instead of drones. What else are you learning?
Yeah, Lindsay, tonight we're learning that the U.S. launched precision military airstrikes in Somalia, targeting ISIS members, including what President Trump calls a senior attack planner. The strikes were coordinated with the Somali government. Now, the president posting on Truth Social saying that the strikes destroyed the caves they live in, killing many terrorists and not harming any civilians. The U.S. going on the offensive, using Air Force fighter jets and Navy fighters from the USS Harry S. Truman in the Red Sea. This is a rare use of American firepower in a country where the U.S. typically uses defensive drone strikes to protect Somali troops against the al-Qaeda-affiliated al-Shabaab militant group. Now, the president sending a strong message warning ISIS and other groups wanting to attack Americans, telling them, we will find you and we will kill you. Lindsay.
The defense secretary says this sends a clear signal. Lama, thank you. Now to the dangerous weather targeting several states in the Northwest. From Northern California to Montana, residents are on alert for heavy rain and mountain snow. That storm system is already unloading heavy snow and making roads nearly impassable in parts of Washington state. Let's get to ABC's meteorologist Samara Theodore. Samara, is the expectation that the atmospheric river won't let up for a few days?
That's right, Lindsay. It's going to be a multi-day event, not just impacting places like Northern California, but farther inland in parts of the Northwest as well. Right now, we have flood watches in place from Redding down to San Francisco, an avalanche warning in the northern Sierra Nevada, and we even have winter storm warnings in far inland as far as Park City, Utah. As far as totals go, copious amounts of rain, 5 to 10 inches of rain potentially as we head through the weekend and by the middle of the week for Northern California. Feet of snow in places like Lake Tahoe, where we could see more than 4 feet. And to think that Southern California still remains in a deficit. The good news is, Lindsay, they'll be tapping into this moisture as well by the middle of the week.
They can use that good news, Samara. Thank you. Now to a heartbreaking tragedy in Michigan. A 5-year-old boy is dead after a hyperbaric oxygen chamber exploded while he was inside. His mother was also injured during the blast. More now from ABC's Christiane Cordero.
Tonight, an investigation into a deadly explosion at a medical facility in Troy, Michigan, just outside Detroit, killing a 5-year-old boy inside a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and injuring his mother.
Oxford Recovery Center, where the hyperbaric chamber that blew up.
The explosion happening just before 8 a.m. Friday at the Oxford Center, a facility offering hyperbaric oxygen therapy sessions.
The presence of such a high amount of oxygen in a pressurized environment can make it extremely combustible.
Investigators are now working to determine what caused the explosion. Normally, those chambers are equipped with fire suppression systems to prevent and extinguish fires, but it's unclear if this one in question was equipped with that system. According to the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, state law does not require these treatment facilities to be licensed or regulated. In a statement, the Oxford Center saying, "Nothing like this has happened in our more than 15 years of providing this type of therapy," adding, "We will participate in all of the investigations." Lindsay, an attorney representing the family, said this is an unimaginable tragedy, asked for privacy, and added the firm is investigating every aspect of what happened. Lindsay.
Christiane, thank you. There is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday. The close call for a trash collection team in Ohio. What officials are urging residents not to do. Next tonight, a close call for a team of trash collectors in Ohio. An oxygen tank exploded as they were doing their rounds. Fortunately, no one was hurt. Authorities are appealing, though, for information and reminding residents that it is illegal to place hazardous materials in the trash. Tonight, 2 of California's largest wildfires are fully contained. The Palisades fire scorched more than 23,000 acres. The Eaton fire burned more than 15,000. This week's star-studded benefit concert Fire Aid raised more than $60 million for fire relief. And tomorrow's Grammys is shifting its focus to help support those impacted. When we come back, the NFL's best hit the practice field in Orlando ahead of tomorrow's Pro Bowl games. To the index now, some of the NFL's best are getting ready for tomorrow's Pro Bowl games kickoff. Stars of the league practiced in Orlando today for the All-Star Flag Football competition. You can watch the games here on ABC at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. When we come back, the heroes of the kitchen who jumped in to make a difference when tragedy struck. Finally, when tragedy struck, they figured out a way to help the heroes in the kitchen who are certainly America strong. The tragic images of the mid-air collision over the Potomac conjured numerous emotions for many, but for one D.C. restaurant owner, he felt compelled to help.
Some of our team members were like, hey, is there any way that we can provide meals to first responders who are going to be out there diving into these like frigid temperatures and cold waters? So it was kind of a first instinct amongst our team.
As hundreds rushed to help with the very difficult task of search and recovery, Rahul Vinod and employees at his restaurant Rasa took on a support role on behalf of the first responders.
So it was all on deck. How do we cook all the food, package everything, make sure it's hot so that when the first responders get these meals and they're actually eating a warm plate of food.
So far, they've prepared more than 750 hot meals to nourish those who've been working tirelessly just a few blocks away. And today, they are still going strong, preparing another 150 dinners to deliver to those first responders again tonight.
Our team is just so amazing. They are always ready to step up and help the community. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they have a purpose, that what they're doing is not only serving a good plate of food, but, giving something more.
nourishing those souls. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lindsay Davis. For all of us here, have a great night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.